Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Future Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Muller, and I am joined today by a very exciting guest, Peter Freer. So, Peter, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're excited, right? Before we jump in, just for everybody listening to know about us, we're a B2B growth company for SaaS companies. We utilize AI to grow and scale. And so if you're interested in that, just stick around at the end of the podcast. There'll be links below, and feel free to do a growth consult with us. But let's jump into our episode today with Peter. Peter, so the first thing we'll always do is talk about the founder's journey. So tell us a little bit about your journey through the neuroscience and all the stuff that you're about to talk to us about neurotech.
Wow. It's a long journey.
Yeah.
I'll try to make it as brief as possible, but my background is actually education. I have a master's in education, and that was the start of my foray into neuroscience. I had specialties in mathematics, physics, science, and computer programming. And when I started teaching, I was teaching adults and children, and I encountered a little boy, John. And oddly enough, John had ADHD. And at this time, it was just barely known. I think they called it minimal brain dysfunction just a few years before this. And I did not know what to do with him. Never had seen anything like that. And they gave him to me as being the only male on that hall, thinking I could control John. So I had a good relationship with John, and I was doing quite well, improving his reading, math skills, those kinds of things. But his parents were not satisfied. So he came in one day, put his head down on his desk, and he looked. I'm used to a hellion who was very funny, very intelligent, but his head's on his desk. And he said, "Are you sick?" And he said, "No, but I'm on medicine." I said, "Well, why are you on medicine?" He said, "My mom said I needed it." And I said, "Okay." And I looked at his eyes, they were bloodshot. And he was out of it. And he stayed that way for days and troubled me significantly.
Yeah.
And come to find out that John wasn't behaving at home, and his parents were trying to shape him with a belt, which was in those days common practice back in the early 80s. And it was heartbreaking to see him now become kind of a zombie. He just is not the same person. So I decided I should take my skills, my computer programming, the physics, background science, just go ahead and build a program that's going to fix this. So that's the first point of an entrepreneur. You have to be incredibly naive and just with a vision, and that has to be a part of being very passionate about.
Right.
And I began researching what was developed at that time, and now we're in kind of the late 80s, and I found that NASA had been using neurotechnology to train astronauts and to stay attentive during states of hyperarousal when everything goes bad, and hypoarousal when they're just bored silly looking at instrumentation all day long. So I modified what they had been doing and received 3-4 patents at that time on it. And then it took a long time to develop. I had to work 3 jobs, 6 days a week to afford to pay for an engineer and a programmer to develop the program. By the time I had it out, John had well passed out of school and was in jail off and on. And he'll be in jail, which was very typical, self-medicated drug, explorations into drugs, that kind of thing. Very common. And but then the program finally came out in 1994. It is called Play Attention. It is now shipped globally in 10 languages. And we have a neurotechnology, a device that decodes neurosignals through the body. So we actually broke that barrier, cracked the code on how to get signals that are very far away from the head and get them to equate to neurosignals very, very closely. So that
And can you measure them?
Yes, actually, well, we don't let them see them because the philosophy behind doing that in a clinical approach is change the brainwaves and you're going to change the individual, which is rather facile. It's just not, it's way overly simplified to say that.
Got it.
ADHD is really a misnomer. It's not a deficit of attention really at all. They have plenty of attention. It's just diffused over a wide area. They have 3 or 4 television stations playing in their mind at one time. So what the problem actually is one of executive function, and many of the viewers here will not be familiar with that term. But if you think of the brain like a corporation, The executives make top level decisions. They plan, they organize, they become aware of what is happening within the company. They have to regulate what happens. And all of those features are usually performed mostly by our frontal lobe. The whole brain's involved, but usually controlled by the frontal lobes.
Okay.
People are not born with it. We are tabula rasa. We are blank slates. You learn these skills through your parents, grandparents, teachers, coaches as you are maturing. Unfortunately, for people with traumatic brain injury or autism or ADHD, they're wired differently. So many of those skills are not present. The ability to direct and sustain my attention, definitely a problem in ADHD. It's a cognitive skill. My ability to plan and organize, not there generally if I'm in that category, if I've been diagnosed as that. My ability to regulate my emotions, not there. So if I want people to learn them, I have to teach them how to do it. And that's what I did in Play Attention. I used neurotechnology to activate games so that they're all the games are brain enabled. They can actually turn the games on by their mind alone, and they can actually move things on the screen by mind alone. And I am getting them to be involved in this learning process that allows them to learn an executive function. So let's say that they're fighting with mom and dad, and a 10, 20-minute homework assignment is taking 2 hours in a fight. I teach them a skill called time on task, the ability to start a task and then complete it in a reasonable amount of time. And that's just one of the things we do. Working memory, short-term memory, spatial memory, even social skills are in the Play Attention program. So that has been very effective. That was my first foray into neuroscience, having developed that based on what NASA was doing. NASA found out about it, and they invited me to speak on their behalf at the National Space Society. And then it was tested later by Tufts University School of Medicine, funded by the U.S. Department of Education. And it was tested in the Boston schools on over 100 kids. And the phenomenal results are all published in peer-reviewed medical journal. Our students had a 5x increase in executive function over 2 control groups. The control groups were given games like Lumosity, you find online, that these brain games that you can buy online and train. So those type of games, and then they got the other control group got no intervention whatsoever. And ours got 5x improvement in executive function, 5x improvement in attention, 4x improvement in academic performance, or actually 4x improvement in behavior regulation, 8x improvement in overall global educational index, their performance at school. And one of the other fascinating statistics that came out of that was that at the end of the study, the long-term study had short-term, long-term, and then a follow-up to see if they retained their skills. In the long-term study, at the end of that study, ours did not require medication or did not require an increase in medication. The other 2 groups had no improvement in executive function or attention or any of those skills, and required an average of between 8 and 13 milligrams increase in their medication just to stay in school. So it shows you how powerful, if it's used correctly, how powerful neurotech is just in that area. And that has been around now for 30 years in different formats, again, shipped globally in 10 languages. And you can see it at playattention.com. And one of the interesting aspects of that is that there is a shift underway. And that is where we used to be very family directed, because kids and their parents definitely, and that happened during COVID when dad had to stay home. And he kept telling his wife, "You're just not a good disciplinarian. You got to discipline him more and he'll do these things." Dad stayed home during COVID, and he all of a sudden said, we really do have a problem. So, sales went up during COVID because there was a realization that we've got to do something. It's not just my wife not being a disciplinarian. It had nothing to do with it. And so, but now the shift is even further, and that many women are now discovering, ages 30 to 85, are discovering they have attention deficit disorder. They're being diagnosed. They actually wondered why their life had taken the turns it has taken, and they are now are one of our top groups that actually want to make changes. So again, a huge shift in how neurotech was used. And now you can find neurotech just about anywhere, right? There are many companies that do it. Most of them have headsets on. And the public generally has not adapted to them. I think they feel it's invasive, obtrusive, and a little bit scary to wear those things. So I've made it as this is some of the technical changes and challenges I've met. I've learned to take it through the body through a wristband. Right now, we're developing one that's like a Fitbit model that will be a
Right.
fit for the mind. That'll be Surya company. They'll be launching probably mid 2025 so that you can control apps that allow you to stay in the moment, stay focused, and have all the benefits of mindfulness at any time you want.
Wow.
So it's an incredible device, and it just gives you a little alert, but you can also control apps on your phone that you can control by mind alone and move things around. There's an app called DaVinci's Candle, which is a candle flame that you walk through DaVinci's lab to see. It lights up his desk. And when you're mindful, you direct your mind toward it and you become mindful to it. You can raise the flame and increase the visibility among the things in the lab. And then if you
Really?
lose that, the flame diminishes. And this is all in real time from a wristband on your wrist, and you're directing it on the phone. Because one of the most difficult aspects of mindfulness is, and you probably have tried it, right? You get into it for 20 seconds and you start thinking about those bills you have to pay, the
Right.
podcast you're filming tomorrow, and then all the meetings you have. And then you go, oh
Yeah.
no, I'm supposed to be mindful. Let me go back to being
Right.
mindful.
Right.
But when
Focus.
you have it on your phone as an app that is actually controlled by your mind and through a wristband, it becomes incredibly powerful because you're in a feedback
Wow.
loop. It's real time and you can see it in real time. Whereas if you watch an app like Calm or something like that, they say, oh, listen to these sounds for 15 seconds. What? Calm doesn't know where your mind is. You know, your mind's drifting away thinking about troubles you have or the next meeting you have or what's for dinner. And you have no idea how much time you actually spent in that space. We now know down to the millisecond how much time you're spending in that space and that you can learn far more quickly. So it's like those apps, only it is so much more powerful. And that is one of the values. So in essence, if we backtrack just a step or two, I
Right.
am the person who actually pioneered this for the layperson. Because typically when I was going at it, my stepsister worked at Johnson & Johnson, a big medical firm. And she said, oh, you're going to get in so much hot water with the FDA because this is a clinical device. You're not allowed to do these things with it. And I just felt it was too powerful to be limiting it to a clinical realm.
Right.
So I called the FDA and I worked with their small business division and said, look, what can I do? And they said, well, as long as you're not making medical claims, you're fine. We have other interests. And so I was getting calls then from bigger players in the industry who were using Neurotech headsets. And they're like, well, how did you get around the FDA? I said, I didn't get around them. I talked to them. I worked with them. So I could actually bring it into consumer use. And so I did that in the very, very early 90s and made certain that it was. But then I started looking for other ways to do it because it is so powerful. So I developed a way to do it through a headrest that looks much like the one that's behind me right now. And it's
Okay.
used the auto industry. That's another company that I'm a co-founder of and it's called Pneumo for neuromobility. Everything that moves, whether it's a jet or a train or cars or buses or trucks, we can monitor the brain of the driver in real time without them ever knowing this thing is even there. It's not like an invasive camera that stares at you all the time. And that's very popular in the auto industry, right? But it's just a little bit of a receiver. It's like a microphone listening to what your brain is pouring out. And you can't see it, you can't feel it. Nothing is radiated into the driver. It's just listening.
Okay.
So if you're driving, Brent, and you notice your eyes are getting heavy and you're yawning a lot and maybe veering a little bit left and right, and the headrest knows this. And the headrest,
Really?
it can say, Brent, and we're looking for something. Yeah, did you ever watch Iron Man? Did you
Yeah.
watch?
Yeah.
Do you know who Jarvis is?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's AI that says, well, we're down to 30% power, so we're going to need a reboot, that kind of thing. So
Right.
we want to create Jarvis in the car that says, Brent, I noticed that you're getting very fatigued. Do you think we should pull over to get a cup of coffee? Do you think perhaps I should turn the temperature up for you or down for you so it's a little cooler in the car to keep you awake? Things like that. Or, Brent, I notice you're stressed. Shall I reroute your drive for you? Shall I play some soothing music for you to calm you down, change the seat position, or change the temperature in the car for you? So
Wow.
this can be done right now. This is all neurotech in the vehicle. And the reason that it can be in the vehicle is because it is always there, right? I don't have to depend on you to put something on, whether it's a wristband or a headset. It's always there in the car with you and can be your best friend to save your life and save other people's lives. Getting fatigued or being distracted in the vehicle are major, major causes of accidents. So we've just covered two huge bases. We've covered ADA, and we've covered now in vehicle. And I'll tell you about one more fun company that I'm working with right now.
Yeah, this one's very good.
This is pretty cool.
They're
And
all good, though. I mean,
oh, yeah. I mean, it's phenomenal because we've made it easy to use and
right.
easy form factors and consumer friendly form factors. It's not scary. It's just super fun.
Yeah.
So what we
Yeah, I
want
bet you are having fun with this. Like, I mean, this is
to me
really
is
cool.
the most satisfying part of it because it's all about creativity, and you just saw how we could blend AI in with it so that you have someone who's watching out for you, just like Iron Man has Jarvis. Everyone can have that so that your comfort, and many of the automakers, by the way, are not only interested in safety, many are interested in health and wellness. So as an ordinary person who is using my vehicle, at times when I'm sitting there waiting for the kids to come out of soccer practice, or I am waiting for my spouse to come out of the grocery store and I'm finished answering my emails, I can actually play a game on the console by my mind alone, just like the Surya Band. I can play that on my console. It's reading me through the headrest, and it can allow me to increase my executive function. Because we know that if we keep our executive function sharp, it diminishes the chances of getting dementia and Alzheimer's if we can keep our brains active and sharp. And that's what we do with executive function. We're absolutely increasing the performance of the brain. The brain is absolutely a phenomenal organ in that it is an organ of reduction. Everything that you've done, you've seen, every kiss you've taken, every night sky you've stared at, every trip you've taken, every experience is reduced in the brain to the random firing of neurons. These are the cells that make up the brain. And that is everything. If we understand that, it becomes an emergent phenomenon. And by that, I mean it produces the random firing of these neurons, produces a signal. And this is what neurotech is all about. That signal can be measured. We've known about it for 100 years. And we've known that cats and dogs have had it. They were studied first. It was only after we found it in cats and dogs that we found that it's in humans. And if for those who don't understand that the brain gives off a range of frequencies because of the amount of talk between the cells produce energy, and it comes off like for those who are not familiar. If you're old enough to remember switching your channel in your car from FM 105 to 99.5 or FM 105 to 106.7 on your dial, because you want to listen to a different station, the brain actually gives off frequencies. These are in hertz from 1 to 30 hertz or so. And so it's like changing a channel. If I'm down in the 1 hertz to 4 hertz range, I'm asleep. We've known that for many, many years. If I am in the twilight of sleep and I'm daydreaming, then 4 to 8 hertz becomes dominant. If I am relaxed and alert from 8 to 12 hertz, I'm on that channel. I'm in an alpha channel and I'm ready for work, And if I'm thinking and maybe reading and taking in information, then beta 1 at about 12 to 15 hertz becomes dominant. And if I'm really doing calculations, my brain is very active, then a higher level beta 2 activates. So we can read these, and then we can actually, through mathematics and algorithms, create ways that we can monitor your state, whether you're fatigued, whether you're emotional, whether you are stressed, whether you are distracted. And these are very important things that we can determine how much attention you're paying. These are very, very important factors of how we live, and we can monitor those in a vehicle. And then, of course, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, it was originally studied on cats and dogs. So if anyone here at the podcast has seen the movie Up, which is a fantastic Pixar film, it's animated. The first 20 minutes will surely make you cry. It is a phenomenal film. In it, though, in the animation, the dogs wear a special collar, and it allows them to talk to humans. So we have developed those collars, and they have been through round 1 trials at a major, major pet food manufacturer, one of the biggest in the world, done quite well. And the collar will look at what the dog is responding to and what the dog is actually what state the dog is in. And right now, the only voice we have is Morgan Freeman's voice. We have a voice imitator, and it's not even AI. It's really a human being. It's a female, and she does Morgan Freeman as well as Morgan Freeman. So,
I love it.
if you chase, we have our lab animal, and we have this stuff called dog off. And it's very offensive smell to them, but it's usually, you can't smell it, but you put it on your furniture to keep them from getting on your furniture and where you don't want them to, And so you spray it on the furniture, the dog won't get on. It's an annoying scent to the dog. So we spray a little bit on the cardboard, and while he's wearing the collar, we put that under his nose, and you'll see his head do this, and he'll go, and you'll hear Morgan Freeman go, no, 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 no. And then you can chase him with it, and you'll hear him say, I said no, no, he's running off. And, then you can treat him. You say, would you like this cookie? And you hear Morgan Freeman's voice come back. If he wants it, if he's not just, looking away from you to say, okay, don't bother me, I'm sleeping.
Right.
Wants the cookie, you'll hear the collar say through your phone, I want the cookie. Please give it to me. And then what we do is check to see if we can change that in the collar consents his annoyance of regarding if I put the cookie maybe in his mouth, but I take it out. Then the collar, you'll hear the collar. If it understands that he's annoyed, you'll hear Morgan Freeman go, don't make me go Samuel L. Jackson on you. Give me the cookie now. And this is just a way that we're coming to understand animals more. But wouldn't it be cool? And we will, in the near future, be able to do that on a regular basis. You'll buy the collar at Big Pet Shop or Walmart or something like that. You go home and you have a talk with your dog that you have never had before.
Yeah.
And that it just becomes so much more real. And I have had, my wife and I have had 4 Shih Tzus. The last one died about 8 months ago. And he was 19. It's like having a family member.
Yeah, it is.
Family, fun to have a family member that I can say, hey, Oscar, what do you think about a cookie right now? And, if I had the right son, we could choose the voice now. This is where AI comes in. We can choose a voice. Perhaps I want a female voice. Perhaps I want a British voice. Perhaps I want someone that sounds like Taylor Swift, if it's a female dog, right? For Oscar, I thought it would be perfect if I could have somebody like Snoop Dogg. Give me the cookie now, That would be hysterical.
It would be hysterical.
You on your phone in real time and quickly send it to your friends.
Right.
This is where we're going. And the use of AI is all instrumental in the background of it as well. But it is incredibly powerful.
I'm just picturing when people get together and they go over and the family dog is, just running amongst all the people and it's talking. That will be the biggest hit of a product ever.
I think so. I think it will be absolutely spectacular when we're able to fully get more attitudes, more thoughts from the dog, more responses from the dog. And we are just now basically starting that. But we already have a great app that actually can produce a lot of this right now. But we still have a bit of work to do on it. But it is so much. That's what happened when we sought out investors. They wanted the collar then. So we would strap the collar to their dog and they would try to give the dog a cookie and listen for Morgan Freeman say, I do want that cookie. Please give it to me. And that is what, knocked that through the goalpost for us, I think, initially, because it's kind of fantastic when you can actually do it in real time and demo it. And all of this, what I'm talking about right now, we're doing right now. I would like to see AI. AI can be a very important tool for this, in that it can help us create. It can be a tool. I think a lot of people are scared of it because the potential for it to go off the guardrails is a possibility. There are serious problems in that. I think Europe just signed a major regulatory ruling among a lot of different countries saying, okay, we're all going to agree. We don't let it go off the rails. We are all going to monitor.
I think we all have to do that.
I think seriously, morally, absolutely. I don't think there's any question that we must do that because the chance for it to do bad is also quite significant.
Yes.
And I think to use it, if we use it as a great tool that will help us be creative and help us bring more safety, like we're doing in cars, more understanding between species, between our dogs and later on our cats. I have horses, so I expect we actually put it on my horse Sammy, and we can find out when Sammy, I can do the same thing with the cookie. I can put a horse cookie out, and we watch an attention meter, and his attention just goes through the ceiling. I take the cookie away, and his attention just drops like that. So we can see that already on a horse. We have more work to do, but this is apparently a lot of the effects that are very what we consider human are simply in animals as well. And it helps us understand them a lot better. And that's part of the fun. So you can see my life is not boring. It's so much fun and
It's really
there's so
fun.
much creativity to go with it. That's the exciting part.
Yeah, Peter, this is fascinating. I didn't know how far, we had someone on the podcast, Marco from down in Miami, and he uses neuroscience for marketing, right? How does someone interact with a brand when you put a bunch of brands in front, right? And just monitoring that. This is a whole different thing. This is amazing. So you were mentioning though that this is where we can help offset or combat dementia and Alzheimer's. Is this something? I mean, is that really like a real thing?
Oh, absolutely. Let me give you a really significant and poignant story.
Yeah.
I hold an 8th degree black belt. I got to study with Bruce Lee's students as well in Jeet Kune Do, Muay Thai, and I was a amateur and professional boxer on top of that. Boxer, bodyguard. I have had many lifetimes doing different.
We might have to have you back and just talk about pre-neuro.
It is so crazy. One of my students wanted to get into the UFC. Many of your viewers will probably know that that is the ultimate fighting championship. They get in a cage, they lock the fellas in with a referee, and you throw knees, you throw elbows, you punch, you kick, you grapple. And I
Right.
begged him not to do it. I said, you are going to experience 15 minutes of fame and you're going to have a lifetime of misery. And he was very young and considered himself basically immortal at that point.
Right.
You're that
As most young people do.
invincible. And I cornered him in UFC 106 at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. And he had his eye cut open. He lost in the second round, but he had more fights than almost anyone in the UFC at that time. And I said, you've got to quit. This is too damaging. His labrum was torn in his shoulder. His back was injured. His other shoulder had major problems. And his brain was not functioning well. And he went to his next fight in Washington State, and they gave him a neurological exam. And this is on his Wikipedia. You can also find that out as well.
Yeah.
This is Spencer Fisher.
Okay.
You can find him using a flying knockout on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the key here is that when he came back to live here in North Carolina, he grew up here, he was significantly brain damaged. He had a lot of trauma. He could not remember his students' names. He couldn't remember what he taught the night before. He couldn't remember his daughter's middle names. And, he was very depressed about it. And he said, well, the doctors just said it's going to get worse. I don't know why, still here. I just don't understand it. I'm just another child that Emily has to raise. And he had 3 young kids. And I said, well, I wouldn't listen to them. I would we're going to take Neurotech and we're going to improve your cognitive functioning. And he said, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I said, I'll give you a device. You're going to use it daily, just like we're training in the gym.
Right.
And so what happened about 6 months later, maybe 8 months later, he was practicing and his wife was really, ensuring that he was practicing. She called me from the hospital. He was having his hip replaced and she was in tears on the other end of the phone. I said, what is wrong? Is he hurt? Is the surgery, has it gone wrong? She said, no, we were in admissions and they asked me for a social security number. And I said, and she said, well, he hasn't known it. And so I told the nurse what it was, the admissions nurse. And he looked at me and said, no, you're off. That's all. That's wrong. This is what it is. And I said, you haven't known this for 8 years. Let me handle this. And he goes, no, you're wrong. And she took his card out of her purse. He was right. And she was calling me in tears because he hadn't been able to do that. He can't even remember his children's middle name.
Right.
And then he knows his social security number all of a sudden. She goes, how is this happening? I said, be aware that these things are going to happen. And you're going to see it more and more. I need you to reinforce that. Tell him it's wonderful. I'm sorry. You say, I'm sorry I was wrong. You're right. That's fantastic. And he now teaches many classes per week. He does videos for YouTube teaching MMA, mixed martial arts on YouTube.
Right.
He actually now teaches private lessons. He makes his own curriculums. This is a significant change in
That's massive.
in his function. Yeah, it's massive, a massive change. It's something that we can do. It's what we do for ADHD students, and I've done for 30 years now. We did it in
Yeah.
1984. We're in our 31st year. So the potential of that, using it properly, to put a person in a particular state and allow them to learn, how to maintain that state, whether it is emotion regulation, whether it is planning and organization, these things can be learned. As I said, the brain will rewire if it's given the proper stimulation. And that's one of the other key elements we really haven't talked about. That the brain is not only an organ of reduction, right? Everything is the neurons firing. That's our whole world in there.
Right.
However, if you want to rewire at any age, the brain will do it for you. This is called neurogenesis, and it's based on a concept called neuroplasticity, that the brain, if you think of the brain as the interior of your house and you have wiring going to each room, you have wiring going to the air conditioning, you have wiring going to your computer to allow communication, you have wiring going to the telephone. All of that is in the brain. You have wires running from the very top of your brain all the way down to the tips of your toes. Now, the brain will rewire for you if you treat it well, you treat it right. And
Right.
we've known this for many years. There was a great study done in Queen's College in London. And they looked, in London, you've probably seen, if you've not visited, you've seen those little black cabs that scurry through London now.
Yeah.
There are less of them now than before because you have Uber over there, I think.
Right. Right.
But in order to do it in those days, you had to apprentice for years, 2 or 3 years, to learn, because it's not laid out like New York City. New York City is a matrix. You can find every street corner you need to get to. It's easy. But London's a very ancient city. And so there are places that you can't even get a car through. There are places, roads that terminate, and it's very difficult. So they took brain scans of a place in the brain. If you've got one on each side called the hippocampus, and it looks like a seahorse, if you can see right through there, it looks like a seahorse shape. They looked at that, and it's the center of memory and learning in the brain. And they noticed that the persons who were new, who were, basically just learning how to do this, how to study these roads, know the history behind them without a GPS system, their hippocampi were small. And then they looked at the veterans, and the veterans were much larger, almost twice as large as these newbies, right? The ones that had to train. Then they watched the newbies and took progressive scans over the years. And they saw that their hippocampi actually grew to much larger sizes. So they know this actually does take place in the brain. We know it to be factual. It's not an imaginary thing. And the brain will rewire. And we know the whole system behind it on a micro level as well. I am the one that studies it on the macro level, but we also know on a micro level that there are very basic things that go on that issue messenger RNA and the Krebs cycle, cyclic AMP response elements and binding proteins. They issue messenger RNA and says, hey, we need this capacity. Go out and rewire this section. And it goes out and starts to rebuild the wiring for that area. And neurotechnology can be a tool that facilitates it. And that has been probably my most profound understanding that has occurred since I was at university and teaching. And then all of a sudden I'm here creating the new era of neurotech for people. And then, I was asked to lecture or talk to the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna. And
Wow.
Yeah, I was working with a nuclear power company out of Canada and teaching them how to improve the executive function for their controllers. Very important for them. And went to the IAEA, and they allowed me to contribute to a paper they're writing. And my wife and I, it's a huge building, just like you see in the movies, with people with headphones on. Everyone from all over the world is sitting there, and I've got top scientists, top nuclear scientists around. And my wife and I looked at each other and said, how did we end up here? A few years ago in 2012, I think it was right at the end of 2011 or 2012, Time Magazine picked me up, did a 3-page story. Again, they flew us into New York. And again, we're looking at each other in the cab going, how in the world did we get here, from an education background?
Yeah.
And so it's a long, long story. I hope I don't put you to sleep telling you.
No, what's really cool, Peter, is that I've had 3, 4 guests like yourself that are they were education background, total entrepreneurial spirit, right? And propelled them. And it's a great thing, because really what you're doing is you've cracked something that is really needed, right? Entrepreneur 101, but you've used your background in education, your discipline in it, but your ability to communicate what it's about and the benefits. And I think that that's what you're seeing. And that was the same stories held true, right? For all those guests, right? In just different industries. So it actually makes a lot of sense to me. And because I have a good front row seat in talking to guys like you.
Oh, it is. It's fantastic to see, but you have to have certain qualities to be able to do it. Number
Yes.
one, you have to be incredibly naive, because if I knew it was as hard as it actually has been, you would never start. You
Right.
just have to see it through. You have to persevere, and you absolutely have to be tenacious about it.
Yeah.
You
You
have
have to
to.
have that North Star. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I'd love to say, oh, it's so easy, and
Yeah.
my
It's
wife,
never easy.
well, why couldn't you have just made the Snuggie?
Yeah.
I just wasn't. I wasn't made like that, from the start. But it is. You have to persevere, and it is very difficult at times. It's never. It's never easy, but it
Yeah.
is incredibly satisfying to see things like saving lives and vehicles. The
Hmm.
fun that you can have understanding what your dog is thinking, and working with ADHD students and changing their lives, and so that they are fully functional and happy. And
Yeah.
then working with Spencer and seeing how someone who has significant traumatic brain injury can rewire himself. I mean, it's absolutely outstanding. And I'm glad that we.
And I feel like you're just scratching the surface because I feel like there's just so many applications to this.
Absolutely. I mean, we know how to train people with it, which is perhaps some of the most outstanding technology use of this technology, and that we know how to train them to improve their functions, especially cognitive function. But we also can teach them how to self-regulate. A lot of us have, everyone wants a trigger warning now, right?
Yeah.
Because we're very sensitive. I need, I have to have my trigger warning, or I can't take it, that kind of thing. So emotional regulation is very difficult for all of us right now. We have higher
Yeah.
states of road rage than we ever have had in the past. We have higher rates
Yeah.
of depression, higher rates of suicide. All of these things are because we have just come through something we've never experienced before. We've come through a pandemic, and
Hmm.
we don't know how to handle it. And we still have not recovered,
I
right?
feel like you're right about that.
But we have not fully recovered. And this is going to be a long process to recover. That's another thing that we, to learn, use the technology that pleasantly and pleasurably allows us to change the way we function as human beings is quite significant. And that's where I see this going. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter, like, I mean, honestly, I could sit here and talk to you for hours. This is, to me, so fascinating and so impactful. And we'll definitely have to have you back because this is really, really just incredible stuff. And plus, might have to have you demo the dog stuff too when
We
you
can
come,
do
just
that
so people
too.
can see it. Honestly, what really gets me is, I've seen a number of people with, either dementia or Alzheimer's, and I feel like this gives me so much more hope about the future for things like that.
We will come to the core of that problem before too long, I think, as long as we are using our brains as much as possible. But many of us, when we retire or we get older, we get up, we watch a little TV, read a little bit maybe, and maybe we'll take a walk. And that's pretty much the challenge we have for the day, right?
Right.
We really have to do more to stay engaged. And to do this, and this is one of the problems we experienced during COVID, we make change because of a relationship with other people. Now, neurotech is a tool, but it does not take the place of interaction with another human, especially in person, right?
Yeah.
We are more lonely now than we ever have been before. And this is because our brains are not
At
yet.
ease.
Absolutely.
At
We,
ease.
we carry around a computer with us all day long, and it
Yeah.
becomes our friend. A fellow just a couple of months ago was reported to have killed himself because he lost his relationship with his chatbot. And this is where we're going. So
Yeah.
we have to understand that AI is also a tool, but we
Yes.
make changes in our lives because of our relationships with other humans. This is, and I give you a good example of that. When I was in 8th grade, I absolutely despised history. I just thought it was so boring. It just put me to sleep. I came upon a teacher, Mr. And Mr. Tier loved history. And by the end of that year, I loved history.
Wow.
And I love it to this day. I'm an avid learner of history. It's just so exciting. You learn so much about what we are, where we have been. And
Yeah.
it was referred to me through him. Now, when we were in COVID and we tried learning through the computer, even though a teacher is trying to teach you over a computer, the whole education system took 2 years in reverse.
Yeah.
We are so far behind because of that, because we don't learn from a box with a picture on it. We do learn through our relationships with other people. We can use these tools wisely.
But they're not a replacement for interaction.
They're not a replacement.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, Peter, it's just I'm so thankful for you spending time. Let me ask you one last question. I told you I was just going to ask one. Any other things that you do personally with AI that you think other people would be just for for yourself to be more productive?
That's a great question. And the answer is I use AI to reach different audiences, right? If I'm writing a blog or I'll just say it's a blog and I know the audience that I'm talking to on it. I'll say, can you help me direct this to kids in this age bracket and make it sensible to them? And AI said, well, this is the great way to do it. ChatGPT, this is a great way to express that. Then I said, well, what if I'm talking to my PhDs that I'm talking with at this university? I want to express the same things, but I want to make it at least using language that would be very familiar to them. Let's do this perspicaciously. What can you do? And it helps me draft that content. And so I have an idea. I never go with that exactly. Right. I feel very, adept at it, but it gives me great suggestions to meet the level of the audience that I'm speaking with at the time. And that helps me immensely, whether it's in written format or whether it is actually in a speaking engagement.
And I feel like that's one of the best use cases that you can do, especially as a founder or CEO, or, where you're trying to communicate to different audiences all the time, whether it's to your staff or it's to a certain industry or prospect. You're right. Communication is one of the most difficult things to do. We get lost in unshared language, right? My partner always says, we need shared language, right? So we know what we're talking about. And I feel like AI really helps me rewrite. So I agree with you. That's one of my favorite ones.
I like that. I do think that it makes it highly functional. And of course, I've already detailed so many different ways we use it within
your business. Yeah.
The verticals of the field that helps quite significantly. But I think for me personally, that saves a lot of time, because what used to take hours and hours and hours, it frees up that time so I can be more creative. I can do fun things. I can communicate with other people and share ideas. But in this case, it helps me direct it to the audience so that it becomes more meaningful. And that's, on a podcast like this, that's what we have to do. We have to have something that is meaningful to the audience and they understand and that resonates in me. And that's not always easy to do. It really is.
No, it's not.
But I do want to thank you, because this is a great format to do it, and it's a great way to do it. And I appreciate you being so patient with me.
No, Peter, listen, I appreciate you spending an hour with us, because this has been, like I said, absolutely fascinating. I've learned so much through this podcast, and I know everybody watching has too. So again, thank you and appreciate you more.
I'll thank you, and let's do it again. There's so much to talk about. So much.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up this episode of Future Proofed. Thank you to Peter Freer. How do someone get in touch with you or start to understand how to do Play Attention or any of the products?
So you can view Play Attention at playattention.com. One word, playattention.com. If you want to talk to me, catch me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to find me and just start a conversation. Love talking about this kind of thing. So those are probably two of the easiest ways to find me.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. And until the next episode, thank you, everybody. This is Future Proof wrapping up, where we always say, change the plan, but never the goal.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.